my daughter had to go to the doctor briefly because she had a mild injury to her neck. So she's fine. She just kind of popped her neck a little bit. Just got some muscle spasms there, but it was kind of worrisome. We had to keep her out of school today so she could see a doctor. So that's basically what happened, and we're gonna try to get through these slides as quickly as we can. Okay, so uh, I'm gonna try to have some time for a question and answer session afterward. So we have evaluation argument and evaluation do's and don'ts. Okay. Uh, one thing as a reminder, today is the due date for the classical argument. I know it's a quick deadline, so we're running with here, but that's the nature of the beast here, because it's an 8-week class, and we still have to get all this stuff done within that time period. All right, so let's go through these slides. What's evaluative argument? At simplest, an evaluative argument is a review giving an opinion on the quality of the subject based on your own criteria. Now, I need to caution you guys that when we're talking quality of the subject, we're looking specifically at the individual thing that you are evaluating. You need to show us why that is good, not necessarily why it's better than something else, or necessarily what it is. Okay, we need to know why it's good. Evaluations have more in common with strong response essays than they do with traditional persuasion, in that they require minimal research. You have to at least be familiar with what's being evaluated. The persuasive nature of the evaluation makes it different from a typical movie or restaurant review that simply note the good points and bad points of the thing being evaluated. Now, the thing is, that's what Yagelski says. I would actually personally argue this is no longer the case, especially in the case of media reviews, which almost always take a side. Whether the element is good, whether the entire thing is good or bad. We're looking at a holistic evaluation here. All right. So I do have a practice exercise. This is part of your lecture exercise assignment today for this week. This is asking you to evaluate two different phones, the Android phones and the iPhone. It's asking you which one do you prefer based on the features and the and some of the elements of the such as price, networks available, things like that. Okay, and then give recommendations for the 4 people I have listed here. Okay, assuming that the Android phone is the latest Samsung Galaxy. Okay, so that assignment is part of the response you should be putting up on the lecture exercises discussion board. All right, so let's talk about how you approach an evaluation. There's the main way that you do it is through a criteria match process. Okay, so what you'd have to do is compose a series of criteria as to what determines quality in your mind. Okay, what's going to make that a good product? What's going to make that a good thing that you're evaluating? Then line up the evaluation subject against those criteria and determine whether it meets those criteria or not. Okay, now those criteria are going to be the primary arbiter of good or bad in this process. However, you have to keep in mind that the subject does not have to meet all criteria to be judged as good. Okay, doesn't necessarily have to hit every check mark on your checklist. It could hit most of them. Okay, or it could have some of them that are really good. Okay, it could have most of it be bad, but there's one redeeming element. Okay, it's going to be up to you to determine how you're going to argue that. The met criteria then become the reasonings behind your evaluative argument, the met or unmet criteria. If you decide that it's not of good quality, you're going to tell us what the unmet criteria are. Okay? So we have the example here of the How It Should Have Ended review of Wonder Woman. Okay? And it's asking what are the reviewer's criteria for his review. Okay? This is the next lecture exercise. All right, so let's talk about constructing criteria for an evaluative argument. Okay? Starting off, purpose and context. It's important to keep in mind context of the subject being evaluated, as well as the context and background of the evaluator. Writer's inherent biases and or background are going to influence the criteria used. Okay, so your experience with the subject, your experience with other elements within the same category as that subject is going to also influence how you view that subject and how you evaluate and what you present as your evaluation. Okay? There are some special problems that you have to deal with. For instance, different classes. Okay, subjects should be compared only to other members of their class or category. Do not compare apples to oranges. Okay, that's a big fallacy out there. You want to only compare things to like elements. Okay, if you're reviewing Wonder Woman, don't review it as a romantic comedy. You have to review it as a superhero movie. Competing standards, perfection versus reality. Be upfront in regards to whether the criteria being used for evaluation is ideal or achievable. Basically, if you are looking for perfection and nothing less, you're bound to be disappointed, and you have to express that this is why this particular criteria has to be met 100%. Okay. Beware of seductive empirical methods, rationalizing everything into numbers. Good evaluations take the non-quantifiable into account in addition to anything that can be quantified. In the video lectures, I talk about the example from Dead Poets Society of English professors who were doing this to poetry, putting them up on an X and Y axis. Okay, don't try to crunch things down to numbers to determine quality, because that's not really going to be a good technique. Okay. The tyranny of cost is something automatically better because it's more expensive. Okay, do not fall into that trap. Just because something is cheap does not necessarily mean it is of poor quality. A good example of this actually came out in the last few weeks. If you watch YouTube, you might be familiar with MatPat, who runs 3 channels called Game Theory, Film Theory, and the most recent one is Food Theory. He actually had a demonstration of this because he ran a tournament for Diet Colas on his Food Theory channel. And he had an inherent bias because he's a lifetime Diet Coke drinker. So they did empirical taste testing on 16 Diet Cola brands. And this is a great example of why the tyranny of cost is a fallacy, because the winning soda in that tournament was a local store, North Carolina store brand called Harris Teeter, okay, which was like the cheap store brand Diet Cola, but it tasted the best of all of the ones that were there. Okay, so again, not just because something is more expensive does not necessarily mean it is automatically better. Okay. Then we have the ideas sufficient, necessary, and accidental criteria. Okay. That what is the baseline that you absolutely need to qualify as whatever it is that you're evaluating your subject as. Okay. Then we have necessary criteria. What do you feel is acceptable? Okay. What is going to be your baseline, as to say, what do you need? It's not necessarily the same as sufficient. A job which gives you a lot of time for your family and pays nearly nothing can be described as necessary but not sufficient, because not all criteria are going to be met. Okay. Then you also have accidental criteria. These are basically added bonuses, which are neither necessary or sufficient, but they're nice to have. Okay. Not required, but they offer an added benefit for you to try to, it kind of influences your sense of quality to have this extra bonus there. All right. When we talk about developing evaluation arguments, development of arguments for evaluation is very similar to that for classical arguments. Every claim needs to have reasoning behind it and evidence to support that reasoning. Okay. One step further, though, in evaluation arguments, there's also an underlying criterion which is the base for that claim and reasoning, and should also additionally be supported by other evidence and arguments. Okay, so the criteria is what's going to be the basis of this paper. Okay, it is the bedrock that's going to be built on. Now, here's the next lecture assignment I asked you to do. You have another review of Wonder Woman from a YouTube channel called The Critical Drinker. Okay, and what I want you to look for in his review is his claims and the reason for that claim, the evidence to support that reason, the underlying assumption or criteria based on what's presented, and then the evidence or arguments to support the assumption or criterion. Okay. So when you look at that video, that's what I want you to be looking for. That's what I want you to post on the lecture exercises board. All right, then we also have the EMP example. This is another part of the lecture exercises. It's a sample evaluative essay on eCampus. It's written by a student named Jackie Wingard and evaluating a museum called the Experience Music Project, or EMP, in Seattle, Washington. Okay. The assignment here is to answer these three questions. How did Jackie Wingard compare the EMP facility to the criteria presented? Pick out some reasons why the EMP does or does not meet the criteria according to Wingard. And then third, do some online research on EMP. Without any in-person experience with it, would you agree with Wingard's evaluation, and why or why not? Okay. All right, we've got 10 slides to go here. So let's talk about here what makes a good evaluation. There are certain elements that will make or break your evaluation essays. One, you need to have strong criteria. Is it clear to the reader why your criteria is important to determining your subject quality? Are your criteria able to be met by your or any subject? Again, don't set the standards too high. Also, make sure that the criteria that you choose are actually criteria that you can judge. Okay, that you're actually judging it by instead of just something you want to talk about. My other sections have I've been grading their evaluations for the last week or so, last couple weeks actually, and the problem I'm seeing with a lot of them is that some of them are just basically giving me what amounts to a book report or travel log, and they're not really telling me why that's good. They're just saying, this happened, this I did, this was fun. Okay, why? They don't give me any reasoning. Okay. You have acknowledgement of biases. Are you willing to accept that some things you judge as quality are based on your own personal biases? Can you move past those biases and create a fair evaluation? So are you willing to acknowledge that maybe you have a certain coloring of what you're expecting, and maybe that's something that you need to overcome? Okay. So then you have knowledge of the subject. Do you have enough information to make a measured evaluation of your subject? Have you done enough with it, watched it, read it, experienced it, in a great enough quantity that you can anticipate all the elements that would contribute to an evaluation of it? Okay, experience with your subject is the key. You have to have experienced it at a minimum of twice, hopefully more than that, in order to create a good evaluation. So next one here is a journal exercise. This is not going on the discussion board. This is going in your personal writing journal. In your journal, write about 3 or 4 potential subjects for your evaluation. These could be anything ranging from films, television shows, to books, or experiential subjects like hotels or parks. Then write about the following for each subject. How often have you experienced a potential subject? How much do you know about it? What are some memorable things about your potential subject? And into what category would you place your potential subject? So this ties into creating criteria. What's going to determine whether your potential subject is good or not? Okay. Once you've done that, you read over the responses and then compose a list of criteria for the category of each potential subject to compare them against. What are the standards that you're going to hold that to? Okay. What are you expecting? What's going to make it good? Okay. Then we have evaluating subjects. From your journal writing, you should be able to choose a good subject for your evaluation, okay, based on the topics you've chosen here. Look at the experience you've had with each subject. The more experience you have, the more prepared you are to evaluate it, okay? Look at the list of criteria for each subject. A more detailed, more in-depth list of criteria will make for a better evaluation, but not criteria so impossible that nothing could ever meet them, okay? Also, read over the experiences you've had with each subject. In your judgment, would they be interesting to an audience, and who would your audience be? Okay. So these are all things you need to think about with each one of the subjects that you write about in your journal. Okay. Next part of this is some evaluation examples, so you can pick up any elements you might be useful for your own. Each one of these you need to have a reaction to in the lecture exercises thread. Okay. Where I'm asking you to evaluate the evaluation. Can you tell what their criteria was? What elements do you like in the evaluation? What elements do you not like? Okay. So those evaluations are first Joel writing about Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey. It's a blog posting. Okay. The second one is a book review of The Contradictions by Sophie Yanow for NPR, written by Etelka Lahochi. It's a standard book review where she's reviewing a graphic novel. The third evaluation is of 2 episodes of Steven Universe by Eric Thurm for the AB Club. Thurm reviews 2 pivotal episodes of Steven Universe by recapping the events that occur in the episodes and analyzing the quality of the shows against other episodes of similar programming. Each episode gets a letter grade. Okay. And then you have 2 reviews by Armand White, known as the most contrarian reviewer at Rotten Tomatoes. Uses a 1 to 10 scale to rate movies and usually winds up rating against the grain of other reviewers on many wide release films. Okay. He does film reviews for the National Review, which is a conservative news magazine. So the 2 examples of his, and I do want you to look at both of them. His review of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 97% that he is panning. And then the second one, he has 2 movies reviewed in a single review. One is for one of them is Assassin's Creed. Rotten Tomatoes scores it at 18%, but White likes it. And then you have Silence. Rotten Tomatoes scores it at 83%. White does not like it. Okay. So again, you're looking at all these evaluations, pointing out things, see if you can tell what their criteria are, pointing out things you like or dislike about each of them. Okay. And finally, we have the actual assignment for this evaluation. Okay. I need to check one thing real quick because I did post these due dates to the announcements. Okay. Here it is. All right. The evaluation is due on April 23rd. Okay. So disregard these dates. Those are for the 16 week. Okay. Your due date for this is April 23rd. Okay. You'll be writing evaluation of a particular subject. There's no requirements in terms of what you evaluate, but it has to be something you have good familiarity with. For instance, if you choose to evaluate a film, you should have watched the film at least twice to give a fair evaluation. Okay. Now, as part of this assignment, you have a clear set of criteria for your evaluation. So along with the final draft, I want you to turn in your explicit list of criteria. Okay. I want to see what criteria you were working with. Now, the essay requirements for this, it's 3 to 5 pages, double space, 11 to 12 point font, standard fonts, Times New Roman, Arial, or Calibri. You need a works cited page only if you do any external research, okay? Theoretically, you should not have to because you'll only have a single research source, which is your evaluation subject, okay? Evaluation should be organized so that your criteria for evaluation can be determined from the context of your writing. That's another reason why I want to have your criteria list so I can make sure that you are doing that. Okay? All right, and that's it for these slides. If you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand, and I will try to answer the best I can. All right, so if you have no questions, there's just one other thing I want to remind you about, and that is that the uh, classical argument essay is due today. Okay, if you're having trouble, you do have a 1 week grace period if you need extra time to do this. But after a week, you're going to start losing points based on how many weeks you've skipped. Okay, now the thing here is if you're having trouble putting together a team, and you're going to need a team for later on when we do the annotated bibliography. But if you're having trouble putting together a team for this in time to do this exercise, what you're going to want to do is get feedback from people around you, either friends or people in your household or something like that. Have them read your essay and give you feedback that you need to improve it. Okay, this would be revision feedback, such as what do I need to change about this wording? What do I need to change about my argument to make it more clear? Okay, this also includes proofreading and editing feedback. What kind of mechanical problems do I have? Okay, is my grammar good? Is my spelling good? Am I using the right words? Okay. So that essay is due today. As much as possible, try to get it to me as soon as possible. Okay. If you don't have any questions, I can go ahead and cut you loose here. I am going to attempt to do these every Friday, as I said. It'll be Friday at about noon. Hopefully I won't have another emergency take me away from it this next week, but I will do my best to do it on time next week. We will continue on with the evaluation elements, okay? And I will see you guys then.